The big bad in Star Wars is Thrawn, at least in this new era, and we've gotten some new details that might make things even more interesting. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. Thrawn is definitely getting set up as the Thanos of Star Wars. I feel like Star Wars has been looking for another big villain in the Star Wars universe after the destruction of Palpatine that we see in the sequels and the destruction of Palpatine that we see in the original trilogy and the lack of destruction of Palpatine in the prequels. Yep. There's a lot of Palpatine going on, and I think they're searching for the next Palpatine. And I don't necessarily think Thrawn is the next Palpatine, but he's something even more interesting, I feel.
Thrawn's kind of a character that goes beyond good and evil. He's very much just for whatever he's going for.
Yes.
In that way, he is kind of like a Thanos, where it was just for the betterment of what he thought was right.
Yeah.
Or, was just on his little rampage of bringing balance.
Yes, true balance to the universe. And I'd say, that's a very apt description. And the idea that Thanos has and Thrawn has is bringing order to his people, and trying not to see the failings in Thanos' perspective, the failings of hunger and society on said hunger and just a boom of population. And Thanos is very good at that. And I feel like they're trying to set up Thrawn in a similar way. Not necessarily the same motivations, but they're trying to bring a fear and a deeper, more cerebral villain.
Yeah. It's interesting how they're going about it.
Because they're not doing a great job so far.
No, because they've just been telling us what we should be afraid of, but they've not been showing us.
Hey guys, Thrawn's a genius mastermind is basically what they're saying, and then they don't show us. And I think that's one of the failings of Ahsoka as a show is they leaned more on telling versus showing.
Yeah.
Like they're going to tell you the things that you should be feeling rather than showing you that through their actions. And I'd say with Thrawn, it was the biggest disappointment. They got so close and they have pieces, but it's more for the fan of the books and the people outside than it is for the actual viewer of the show. Because if you look at the battles that Thrawn is involved with, you see a lot of the pieces that are there in the much more fleshed out extended universe, but you don't see that on screen. You only see pieces of it. But Dave Filoni did have this to say when it comes to Thrawn in the future. Quote, "We set up Captain Pellaeon in The Mandalorian, and that's a character that goes with Thrawn. So I'd love to see the two of them together." And he also points out that a fellow figure of Ahsoka has a long-standing conflict with the Grand Admiral. Quote, "His foil throughout Rebels was Hera. Pitting the two generals against one another is something that I find interesting." So I think that's definitely going to be something that they're playing around with now that they're back in the same galaxy once again. And then Lars Mikkelsen says this about the character, and I feel like Lars has a deeper understanding about Thrawn that he's trying to get across. He says that Thrawn is ultimately, quote, "straightening out all the others and tidying up the shop. I could imagine something in terms of a power play within the Empire." And I think that's what we're going to see more with the eventual season 2 of Ahsoka. We're going to see more of the setting up of the pieces. And I feel like that's going to be the frustration around Ahsoka. It's going to be a lot of setup until they get to the point where they feel like they can actually do something with whatever Heir to the Empire movie that Dave Filoni is probably going to work on.
That's a good point.
So we're never going to see any actual conflicts until that movie takes place, I don't think.
Really?
That's my theory on it.
I feel like they can't go that long without some sort of conflict.
I think there's going to be a conflict, but I don't think it's going to be Thrawn.
Okay.
Because Dave Filoni doesn't do well with leaving things vague.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense? Specifically with villains. He loves to leave a lot of different things vague and amorphous, but when it comes to villains and his heroes, it is a clear victory or it's a clear defeat. There is no in between.
Yeah.
And I feel like with how they're setting up Thrawn as a character, there cannot be a slight defeat of Thrawn. I don't think they can successfully keep him in a battle and not have him wipe the floor with them. So he's kind of like he's going to win all the battles is how he should be set up as a character.
Exactly. But what did they do in Ahsoka? They let him lose every single one. Every single one.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to just keep seeing him.
But that takes away the whole joy of a character.
Exactly, I know. Don't get me started.
I feel like if they're going to do Thrawn, if they're going to set Thrawn up as the big bad, he cannot be the person that keeps on losing the battles to ultimately lose the war. He needs to win all of the battles so it feels even more visceral when he loses the war. Because we know he's going to lose eventually.
Eventually, yes. Yes, he will. I think it's really interesting that they're saying that Hera's the foil. I feel like it was always Ezra.
Yeah.
I think it's not a bad choice.
Yeah. Hera was there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, of course, she was leading things and helping with the
But I never felt like
an
intellectual battle between the two of them.
No. It was just hold off until Ezra could do something. It's kind of how it felt, at least in Rebels. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting choice. I think it's going to be good as far as Hera growth goes.
Yeah.
And just seeing her really embracing that general role that we haven't exactly seen, just mostly seen her as captain of the rebels sort of thing. So
and that's not true anymore because of the New Republic. A lot of her powers have been taken away with this new structure. Right. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see that power play with her versus the government versus Thrawn, and her actually knowing Thrawn better than anyone there.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the direction that they're taking Thrawn as a character, because if you have Thrawn in Star Wars, you need to use him like Thrawn in Star Wars. Do not make him just a standard warlord that's trying to regain the throne of the Empire. That's not Thrawn. Make someone else if that's what you're going to do, because that's not Thrawn as a character. Thrawn needs to be the person that is going to win all of the battles and is going to be the force of evil that they are constantly fighting against and losing. They cannot be the Empire and Rebels, where it feels like 4 people can take down an entire squadron and Legion and Star Destroyer. That cannot take place as we know the character in all of the medium. And I feel like it's interesting because Timothy Zahn, I believe, owns the character of Thrawn.
Well,
so he has a big say in any of the mediums that Thrawn is in. So hopefully he can actually make a difference in this portrayal of Thrawn.
I have some hope, especially when it comes to Pelion and this little group of bad guys that are in here.
I think Warlords it's going to be Council.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting when Thrawn actually does show up to that council, because Thrawn's never been good with parties.
Yes.
And no one really understands what the heck he's doing, because he's just on a different plane. He's just on a different playing field altogether.
Yeah.
He is the chessboard instead of playing chess. So, I hope it introduces some really interesting dynamics in that group.
Yeah, I hope so too. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, though. We'd love to hear your theories on what they could possibly do with Thrawn, and if they are going to set him up like this, what is that going to look like? Let us know in the comments below. Check out our podcast, and may the Force be with you.